Welcome to the Influential Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Duncan, and my dream is to inspire moms to pursue their goals and help them make a difference in their world. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, a wife to my high school sweetheart, and a lawyer. This show is a place to hear stories of moms working hard to have a positive influence in their profession or their community, and sometimes both, even as they juggle their responsibilities at work, at home, and to their children. You'll get tangible, practical tips for managing the chaotic world of motherhood and work. Come along as we hear these stories and feel inspired to step outside of our comfort zone as leaders and as a positive force within our communities. I believe that moms can change the world. Okay, so I'm here today with Laura Hunter, who is one of the co-founders of Moms on Call, and she's a pediatric nurse. She's a mom of 5 kids. Am I right about that, Laura?
5, yes.
5 kids, including twins, I think.
Yes.
So she has experience all the way around, and I can tell you that Moms on Call saved my sanity as a mom. And my boys still aren't that old. They're 5 and 2, but when they were babies, it saved my sanity. So I'm excited for this conversation tonight, and for us to just talk about balance versus being off balance, and how we, use truth in motherhood and in parenting, and a little bit of tips for moms who might be going back to work or, trying to acclimate themselves to the daycare schedule. So I think we'll have a lot of fun things to talk about tonight, as we kind of think about, what does this look like for moms who are sleep deprived and trying to reach their goals and make a difference, but they can't see straight because their kids aren't sleeping.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. So let's go back for those folks who haven't been blessed with the miracle that is Moms on Call. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about who you are and how you got here, and share with us exactly what Moms on Call is and what the mission of Moms on Call is.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. I am so excited to just be able to be a voice. Sometimes we just need a voice of hope and encouragement. You'll hear me say that quite often, because in this world we're living in, the voices can be anything but that. And sometimes we just interpret those voices incorrectly. So I'm excited to be on. I'm excited to be able to speak today. So, but a little bit about who I am. I have 5 children. Like you said, I have a 28-year-old, a 20-year-old. The twins are 17, and little handsome, that's Brent. He is almost 16. So
wow.
Kind of crazy. My house is loud. From the time they get up to the time they go to bed, nobody could have prepared me for that. But I really think, of course, hindsight's 20/20. I never dreamed that we would have 5 children. In fact, we knew we wanted a second child, and we had tried and miscarried, and finally they fixed my thyroid, and we thought, great, this is good. We got pregnant with number 2. We were like, this is awesome. This is the perfect American family. 2 girls, the dog, the cat, the white picket fence. Hey, this is perfect. And got pregnant unexpectedly with what we thought was number 3. Had 2 ultrasounds. We listened to the heartbeat at every visit. They swore it was only 1. And at 20 weeks found out it was identical twin boys.
Oh, my goodness.
Got over the shock a bit. Thought, okay, we can handle this. Okay, we got it. And Jim had a vasectomy when the twins were a couple months old. And 10 months later, I was pregnant with little handsome. So there's 18 months difference between the twins and Brent.
Okay.
But I think that it's so funny because, again, like I said, hindsight's kind of 20/20. I could not have created Moms on Call had I not been in each of those situations.
Right.
You see, I've had them close together. I've had them further apart. I had 2 at one time. I had 3, 18 months and older. I had preemies. I had full-term babies. I have nursed some exclusively. I nursed and did bottles with the twins. I did formula only with Brent because he wasn't even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to stay
Just
afloat.
feed the baby.
Just feed the kid and hopefully not leave him somewhere. So anyway, but I often think back, and that kind of leads me to the beginning of Moms on Call, because my real job, up until actually a year and a half ago, my real job was taking the after hours calls at a busy practice here in Atlanta. And I was on call about 90 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
And took anywhere between 200 and 300 phone calls a week. And I did that for almost 20 years.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's a whole lot of calls, you know?
That is a lot of calls.
And Brent was a week old when one of my bosses said, you need to start seeing our new moms. Just go out and tell them what to worry about. And I kind of laughed at him. I'm like, really? I'm on call 90 hours a week. I just had my 5th kid. There really isn't enough hours in the day. And he said, it's what you're supposed to do. And so that's what we did. Jennifer and I, Jennifer's my co-partner in crime here. Her and I, we worked at the same office. We were taught a lot alike, so we thought a lot alike. She has a set of twins exactly a year older than mine. And
wow.
So we wrote a folder and began going into the homes of these new families. And it exploded.
And so at this point, how old was your youngest, Brent?
Okay, so Brent was a week old.
Okay.
I know.
No time like the present, right?
No time like the present. And then, of course, the twins were 18. And then I think Allison was about 5. And then, of course, I had Kayla, who was about 12 at the time. So it was all directions, all the time. And now here I found myself creating a folder and going out and seeing these new families. And so we were just like, okay, wait, we're going to go in, we're going to do the basics. What's that look like? Nobody's doing that. We created something out of nothing. And so the hope was to be a voice out of those many that were trying to speak into how they were doing this thing called parenting. And it exploded. And people from other practices were calling, and letters were coming in of babies sleeping through the night, which actually wasn't our intention. That's what we're known for, but that wasn't our intention when we started. Our intention was to just really go in the home and bring some confidence and show you how to clip nails and put a diaper on.
Because those are scary things.
Those are scary things.
Those are scary things.
And so that was almost a byproduct. And that's when I say we were getting letters, and back in the olden days, we were actually getting letters in the mail. And those letters were, I can't believe how much more confident I am as a parent.
Oh, wow.
And then we would get letters of, my baby's 8 weeks old and sleeping through the night. And I'd call Jennifer and I'd be like, I got another letter. And Jennifer would be like, I know, I got one too. I'm like, what are we doing?
Right.
That's different. And so that's when we kind of stepped back and was like, okay, we got something here. But Kenny Rogers, I did a consult for Kenny and Wanda with their twins, I guess about 14 years ago. So now we're about a year and a half, 2 years or so into the business.
Okay.
And I did a consult for Kenny and Wanda. And when I got ready to leave his house, he was flipping through that folder I had printed off of my computer. I still think that's so funny. I just, it was a 3-prong folder, purple folder. And he's flipping and he says, it's not copyrighted. He said, it'll be copyrighted tomorrow morning. And his attorneys from Nashville were calling the next morning because I didn't know, you know. And so, but his words of wisdom, what will always stand out, and I've said this time and time again, because it was such a pivotal point in our business. Mm-hmm. He said, Laura, he says, you've got something here. He said, you can't hit a bullseye if you don't throw a few darts. So that was his words of wisdom. And,
I love that.
Of course, I tried to get him to do you got to know when to swallow.
Right.
But anyway, we won't go there because I can't sing. So, but it did. And that's when Jennifer and I really started thinking, okay, we have got to be able to reach these parents. We do have something here. And so we began to dream. And I often say we began thinking of that, mom who is at 2 o'clock in the morning. She's exhausted
Mm-hmm.
and she's actually being told, oh, that's just the way it has to be. Welcome to
Right.
motherhood.
Yeah.
That's just it. And I thought, okay, can we be a resource that has a different voice? And like I said earlier, we want it to be that voice of hope and encouragement and a voice of confidence. And the reason I think that it's been as successful as it has is because we were there.
Yeah.
We were the ones up with our kids at 3 o'clock in the morning, and lots of other families because we were doing the after hours calls. But
Right.
we were amidst the loads of laundry and the dirty floors and the homework and the guest bathroom, making sure the guest bathroom has toilet paper.
Right.
Nobody else is doing that. We were the ones that were having to figure that out. And
I love that.
So, long story short, we've sold over 150,000 books. And we've personally partnered with well over 10,000 families around the world. And it's all by word of mouth. But
That's
it is
amazing.
reality parenting.
Yes.
We don't go one extreme or the other. We try to encourage people to kind of stay in the middle. And we really just try to encourage families to find what works in your house at this particular season of your life,
right,
with that baby that you got. Because I promise what you do with the first one may not be what you do with the second or the third or the fourth or,
Yeah.
And so just trying to encourage parents to stand on their own 2 feet, that they are perfectly capable of doing what they're called to do, which is be a parent. And the truth is, we love our kids.
Right.
So
And
you know
that's
what?
where we're all
They're going to
coming
be
from.
okay.
Yes.
They're going to be okay.
Exactly.
In spite of us sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. In spite of it. Not because of us, but in spite of us.
But in spite of us.
So it sounds like you did not set out to put together a sleep training program and a sleep training book, but back I'm trying to get, this is what, 16 years ago then?
Yes.
That this started. So 16 years ago, was sleep training a thing? And I'm using air quotes because now, I think it is kind of a thing. But
it is a thing now. And I even think back then, I think your choices were like baby wise.
Okay.
I mean, I think that was probably one of or the 800 page, what to expect when you're expecting,
right,
or what to expect the first year or whatever.
Right.
So I think those were really your only choices.
Right.
There weren't a ton of choices.
And
available.
I know from because I used the book,
Right.
and I still remember. It's funny because you were talking about the moms up at 2 a.m. and I remember I downloaded it on my Kindle so that when I was up with the baby in the middle of the night in the dark room, I could get it out and still see it without turning on the light. So I would look at it like, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
I love it.
And so what I remember about the book is, especially during those, sleep deprived days, very early on when you're just trying to figure out up from down and, right from left, is that there is information about feeding and like you said, how to clip nails. I mean, it's so much more than just sleep training. And the whole book is really kind of encompasses parenting and motherhood. So I think it's really cool to hear that you didn't set out to put together a sleep training program, but in a lot of ways that for a lot of moms and for a lot of families, that's what it's turned into, which I think is really neat.
Yes. And it's still, we still sit in awe that that's where it became. But I think that once we can put all those little things in place, create really good habits. You mentioned sleep training. I'm all about creating real good habits in the beginning.
Right.
So we don't necessarily have to sleep train.
Exactly.
How are you going to sleep train a newborn? They already know how to sleep.
Right.
We just need to put the things in place to help create those good habits.
Yeah.
And when we create really good habits, then the sleep training kind of takes care of itself.
That's exactly right. I started using the program with my oldest when he was probably 3 months old, and it helped us turn a big corner. Just like you said, to set up kind of the systems in place and the routines and all of those things so that he did just in turn become a better sleeper. But with my youngest, who's now almost 3, I started with him almost right away. I mean, I remember, basically as soon as the book says go, I was on it.
I love it.
And he was, I didn't feel like I was sleep training him, but within just a few weeks, he was sleeping through the night, and
Right.
people were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we just have a routine and we stick
Yes.
to it, and we have really good systems in place that work for us." So,
I love,
um,
love,
and
love
and,
that.
and as a mom who was going back to work, that was really important to me to have something in place, because I knew I was not going to be a good mom at home or a good employee at work if we didn't have something that was working for us.
Mm.
And this podcast is not just focused on working moms, but it's focused on moms who are trying to make an impact either in their profession or their community. So, maybe they just have kind of a vision for getting involved in a bigger way. So, therefore, they need that mental space and energy, and physical energy to be able
Yes.
to do those things. So, as you've worked with moms who either work from home, or are going back to work out of the home, I'm curious what kind of, and they're probably different. I'm thinking about maybe the challenges that a work from home mom faces
Oh,
when the baby is right there, and
yes.
it's easy to attend to the cries. That's probably different from a mom who works outside of the home and is transitioning to daycare schedules that might not always work with what
Line
you've
up.
gone through at home. So, can you talk us through maybe a couple of tips for each of those that moms who are listening might be able to take away from this conversation to say, okay, now I see how I might be able to put some things in place that would help?
One of the biggest things that I want to encourage family, especially the work at home mom,
Mm-hmm.
is that a routine gives us flexibility and predictability.
Yes.
So, especially a work at home mom, if you kind of lay out and you know that you've created these 2 good nap opportunities, then that's a great time to maybe schedule that phone call or to try and get in those emails, or so one of my best tips is try to stick with those 2 nap opportunities.
Yep.
And if we start to create those really good habits early on, they'll fall into, and naps are a toss up. We're going to have good nap days, we're going to have bad nap days.
Yeah.
But if we start to create those habits, then things kind of fall into place. So that at least twice a day, you know that you have an hour, hour and a half where you can carve out and say, okay, I'm going to sit down and try and answer, these emails, or make that phone call, or package up those, products, whatever that might
Right.
be. So that's the flexibility. The routine gives you that flexibility and predictability within reason. It's never going to go as planned, right?
Yes.
But within reason, that allows. And then I think the second piece of that is, if you are, on a phone call, and oh my gosh, you can hear the little one just wake up from a nap and they woke up 20 minutes early.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we have to tell ourselves is they are safe, they are loved, and they can wait a few minutes while I finish up this call.
Yes.
Or, that may be a call, or it may be I'm just in the bathroom.
Right.
And they wake up early and here we are, jumping up and trying to go. Whereas if we kind of just, I use the phrase a lot of times, practice the pause.
Yeah.
I love that phrase because I think it can, in so many areas of our lives, if we just practice the pause, we may find that they settle back down and they go back to sleep for another 20 or 30 minutes. And oh my
Yes.
gosh, I can now finish another few emails. And so I think practicing the pause, getting onto a routine, and which will give you some flexibility and predictability, are 2 of the biggest things. And a crock pot or Instapot. Just
Yes.
saying. I don't care that everything tastes the same. Everybody's getting a meal. It's good to go.
That's right. Exactly. Just like we say, just feed the baby. Just feed
the
the
baby.
family.
That's right. Just feed them. Just
feed the
'em.
family.
That's right.
I love that.
And then for the daycare, which you're right, it is completely different when you're trying to get up, get everything in the car, get the kids up, get them fed, get out the door, fight traffic, get them dropped off, try to get to work. The daycare doesn't do what you want them to do, and it's all over the place. So With daycare, what I always say with daycare specifically is daycares have to run their business the way they have to run their business.
Right.
And you can tell them, hey, this is kind of the routine, but the reality is they may or may not can do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids are going to learn the difference between what's done at daycare and what's done at home.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Now that I'm on the other side of it.
On the other side. So
yes,
if you
that's
can,
so true.
If you have your routine for how things go from the moment you walk in the door in the evenings and on the weekends, you try to keep somewhat of a routine. Again, I am really big in it being a flexible routine. And I do like the word routine over schedules, even though we talk about schedules and I think we, in our books. But I'm more about the word routine because, see, routine tells me that what's really, really important is the flow of things.
Right.
Schedule makes me think that the time is important. And that's not true. It's more the routine of things. So if we can keep the routine of things somewhat predictable, that makes everything else flow easily. So I'll say, daycare, you do what you do you. You do you. But you know what? I have to pick my kids up at like 4:45. If there is any way you can make sure that my little one is fed before I get here, that would just help me make my evening so much easier.
Yeah.
And a lot of daycares will say, yeah, I can make sure that happens.
Yeah.
So that when you do pick up that little one at 4:30 or 4:45, you're not trying to fight traffic, rush home, get the dogs out, get dinner on, feed the little one, get a snack for the toddler, get the laundry that has soured 3 days in a row into the dryer, before you have to wash it again. If they can do that, then that does make the evening fall a little bit easier and a little bit less rushed and a little bit more breathing room.
Yes.
And so I'm really big on that. And then the other thing for my moms and dads who have to leave out in the mornings and get things going is sometimes 7 a.m., which is our typical wake up time for most kids across the board. That's just normal. But also sometimes you got to leave your house at 6:30. They're going to be okay. Get them up, feed them, put them in the car seat and go. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. And just pick up, in our books, we have those C times.
Right.
So, daycare is going to do what they do. You're going to try and hit the C times in the evening to get things back on track so that we keep that evening in place.
And so for those who haven't yet seen the books, but who I am sure are going to run out and get one as soon as we're done. So remind us what the C times are, because I do remember that, it's like no matter what you do, you feed it this time in the morning and this time at night. And I remember sticking to that. So give us, for those who haven't yet experienced Moms on Call, kind of the general structure of a routine and what those C times mean.
I love it. So C times are what we call our crazy day tips.
Yes.
Because that's reality.
Yes.
Life is never going to go.
Every day.
That's right. And so life is not ever going to go. We got doctor's appointments. Errands have to be run, So what we tried to do was, can we pick a couple of times during the day that are set in stone within reason? Again, we do have some grace periods there. But if we can set in stone a couple of times, kind of reset points, is maybe even a better word.
To get back on track.
To get back on track. Then those things tend to help make the rest of the day go better. So in our, 8 to 16 week routine, we have a 7 a.m. set in stone time. If we can get up at 7 and open the blinds and start the day, then we know that they're going to eat at 7 and 10 and 1 and 4 and 7. Again, within reason. And then if for some reason that doctor's appointment ran late or grandma was here and she was just feeding this baby all day long because he's starving to death, then we know that, okay, the next reset point is 4 p.m. So we're going to get that baby up. We're going to do a feeding at 4 o'clock because now we're going to get back on track. We're going to put the train back on the track at those C times. So it just gives you that right-hand line and that left-hand line.
Yes.
Gives you some of that, okay, back on track right now, right here, we're good, so that the rest of the day flows well.
I remember those being so helpful,
Oh,
especially that afternoon time, because there were days where it was just like, we have totally gone off the rails, but it helped me keep and I think, just to back up for a second, I think as moms, we feel like if around noon it's gone off the rails, all you
then we're
can
done.
see is like 1 a.m. You still haven't gone to bed. The baby's not asleep. You just envision this like 24-hour period where you're still awake, and it's
Yes.
like, we're never going to go to sleep. But I always felt like that was if I can make it to that C time,
Next sea time.
then I know that we'll get back on track and we will all be sleeping
Yes.
because that was the routine that helped us get to a point where my kids were sleeping. And so,
And the way
I
our kids tell time is by doing the same thing at the same
over and
time
over
every
again.
day.
Right.
So,
Right.
if
That's
we can just
exactly
kind of
right.
start to get into that routine, that does help.
Yes. I love
And
that.
and one last thing about the working mom and trying to get out the door and is at night,
Hmm.
set aside 10, 20 minutes where you're making sure that diaper bag is repacked, that, the clothes are laid out, that as many items as you can have done and marked off and put in the car or whatever that is. If we can kind of do that before we go to bed, I do think that it
Yes.
makes that morning a little bit easier. And, um, you know, because it's crazy, it's chaotic in the morning, and you never know who's going to get up and they throw up everywhere, or and we're trying to juggle and run around. And so the more things that we can kind of do proactively, it does help a little bit
I
to
love that.
to make the flow of things a little simpler.
Absolutely. Hey friends, popping into this fun episode to remind you to take a quick second to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, you can also sign up for bonus episodes and content from my monthly newsletter at melissaduncan.com/join. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show. So, one of the questions I posted on Instagram last week, if anybody had questions that, might be helpful for the listeners of the show. And somebody asked, and I thought this was a really good question because I haven't personally experienced this, but I know moms who have. So they get their baby on a schedule at home and they stay home with their baby for maybe the first 11 or 12 months of the baby's life, and then they transition to
Oh,
daycare. So, I think kind of the beauty in going back to work after 8 to 12 weeks is you're all still figuring it out. And
right.
so you kind of train the baby to that daycare and at home routines
That's true.
for the first time.
Yeah.
But when they're already on a schedule at home and then you move to daycare, I'm curious what you think about that scenario and maybe a couple of tips for those moms who are having to now create a new schedule and make a big transition with a baby that is actually on a schedule
Yes.
or a
I mean,
routine, I guess I should say.
yeah, a routine. But yeah, schedule too. I mean, we know. But yeah, that is very difficult, and it's a hurdle that has to be crossed.
Right.
We have to get over that. And I will tell you 100% of the times when you're confident, that's going to make all of those things go better.
Mm-hmm.
So when mom says, this is just how things are going, and she's not anxious about it, or at least pretending to not be anxious about
Right.
it, when she is like, this is what we're doing, and she's smiling. The thing is, when you have a 12-month-old or a 15-month-old, they are watching our body language
Yeah.
and they pick up on that. So I would highly recommend being confident, knowing don't over explain. This
Right.
is just how things work.
Right.
We're going to school now, and this is your teacher. And and you go and you boldly and confidently stand up straight, kisses, kisses, I love you, and I'll see you in a little bit, and you get out. We
Yes.
don't linger, we don't hang around, we
Yes.
don't, we don't have the squishy face, you know?
Yep.
So we want to try and let our kids see our confidence, that we believe in them, that this is perfectly safe, this is how we do things, and they're going to be just fine.
I love that. That is so important in daycare at any age, I think, is that confident,
It's
I love you. Have a
confidence.
great day.
You've
Goodbye.
got this. You've so
Yeah.
got this.
Yeah.
Because we have to believe in them, because who will?
Right. That's exactly
So,
right.
we have to give them, we often say, and I am going to have some t-shirts made, but confidence is contagious.
Yes.
Confidence
Yes.
is
I love that.
contagious. So we're going to set the tone of that. And it's up to us as parents to set that tone.
Hmm.
This is perfectly normal. This is perfectly normal. And this is the way we're going to do things.
Yes.
And when we come to that, man, it's perfect.
That's absolutely right.
Or maybe not perfect.
It's not perfect.
They'll
Yeah.
still throw a fit and throw. But you're going to be like, you've so got this. I'll see you in a little while.
That's
Love
right.
you.
That's right. It makes it so
And
much
get off.
easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because the truth, you'll often hear us say, we parent out of truth and not fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we parent out of the truth that our kids are safe, they are loved beyond measure in a climate-controlled environment, in a loving home, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so parents who have to go to work and their kids are in daycare, those kids are going to be okay. Because
That's
the
right.
truth is, they're loved beyond measure. Whether we nurse our kids, or whether we do formula, or whether we homeschool, or whether we private school, or whether we public school, or whether we, work out of the home, or whether we stay at home, the truth is we all love our kids. So can we all agree that we love our kids, even though we may do things a little bit differently?
Yeah.
We love our kids, and we are all great parents.
Yeah. I love
even
that.
if we do things differently.
I was thinking because I had the notes from you, from your email beforehand, and I actually wrote here in my notes, parenting out of truth and not fear, and I was thinking back on that and thinking, in those early days, fear is what seems to rule, and I think it's partly born of not having any idea what you're doing, even if it's your second kid or you're probably your third or fourth. I'm sure you feel every time, like I have no idea what I'm doing, because every baby is different.
Yes.
And the pressures that you're hearing, everybody's giving advice and trying to tell you, oh, do this, no, do that. This is better. This is not so good. And then just the general fear that this little human that you love so much is completely relying on you, and you are sleep deprived.
Yes.
And so I just remember looking back at Melissa of 2013 and 2016, in those very early days with both of my babies, and thinking that the Melissa then and some of the fears that existed then were probably just me not thinking clearly. And I wasn't able to always parent out of, the truth didn't always overrule the fear.
That is
so
true.
What other kind of takeaways, I guess, would you have for just some things for moms to tell themselves so that truth can come back on top of the fear, and then even when they're in the middle of the night, or they're at the end of a crazy day and they're trying to get reset back on track? Is there any other kind of mantra that you might have for a mom who is trying to get back to the truth instead of the fear?
Right. I love that. I think that if we can, one, parenting out of that truth and that fear, telling ourselves our kids are safe, they are loved, they can do this.
Yes.
Limiting the amount of voices that we allow to speak in to how we do this thing. It's just, we don't need 900 of our closest, Facebook friends to tell us how to do this thing.
Yeah.
We are given everything that we need. You don't need another expert to tell you how to do this thing. I think we end up in information overload.
Yep.
And that's what shakes our confidence. So I think that if we can always come back to, our kids are strong, adaptable, and resilient. So if we parent out of truth and not fear, and one of those truths being, my kids are strong, adaptable, and resilient, and so am I, that changes everything.
Yes,
that changes everything. Because if we can limit those voices, we can pick 2 or 3 people that are like-minded to kind of walk this out with us. if we know that our kids are strong, adaptable, and resilient, and if we know that, you know what, I'm not perfect, my kids are not perfect,
Right.
then we know that in our home there is it's safe and it's secure. And so I just think that we're living in a time
Mm-hmm.
where our confidence is so shaken because of all the voices that's speaking into us, and this one did it this way and that one did it that way, and their lives are absolutely perfect. Look at their Instagram.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so can we step back and say, no, 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 my life's messy, it's messy, but my kids are loved beyond measure, and they're strong,
That's
adaptable, and
exactly
resilient.
right. Yeah.
We're good, we're going to be okay.
That's exactly right. So remind me how far the Moms on Call books go. I know there's, into the toddler years, but I can't remember how far
Yeah, we go
it
through
goes.
4 years. So we
Okay.
have a 0 to 6 month book. That's your, kind of your newborn basics. Then we have 6 to 15 months. And then we have our toddler book that goes through that 4th year. But I'll be truthful, there's stuff in that toddler book that will work for your teenager too. I'm just saying, because they're just, big toddlers.
Yes.
So, and then we have 2 apps. So we have a scheduler app, which just kind of helps you give some guidelines as to when those times, those reminders, and what to do at each time, just kind of
Right.
at a glance so that you don't always have to have your book right there. But I tell you, one of my favorites is the Toddler by Design app. I
Oh,
love it.
okay. So tell us about that, because I don't think I
That
know what that is.
that's one of my favorites. So the Toddler by Design app is you kind of take this little quiz, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of a better word, and it just tells you how your toddler is bent. So there's 5, and,
Oh.
and we use the SMART. So it's social,
Mm-hmm.
movement, an engineer, rule follower, which we all wish we had,
Right.
and then touch. And so usually it's a combination of 1 or 2 of those things, and
Right.
sometimes it'll go kind of back and forth between 2. And then we speak to you and give you phrases and talk about how your kid is designed. So if you know that your kid is a touch kid, then that kid's probably not going to sit at the dinner table without some interaction.
Right.
You may have to put your hand on his lap and just pat him every now and then. He
Yes,
just
that's
needs
so
that
good.
touch. That's the, or a movement kid. Those are our flight risks.
Yes.
So they've got to be going. So that
I've got a kid that stands up while he eats. Like
oh yes,
he will have one leg, maybe like his knee in the chair, but
I
otherwise
love it.
he has to stand up. And I think he's my movement kid, because we
Yes,
can't get him. We would have to glue him to his seat to get him
right. And
to actually sit through dinner.
yes, and so with that, in that instance, it would be great to know, okay, I've got a movement kid. We are not going to the restaurant tonight and expect him to sit in the booth for 2 hours while we
Right.
just sit and have a 5-course meal. And,
Right.
I'm going to have to plan this out a little bit. We're going to go. We're going to order our food. I'll keep him, interested in coloring for a few minutes. Then we're going on a field trip. Well,
Yes.
my,
Yes.
my waiter's going to tell me about 5 minutes before my food's coming. And we're going to go outside and we're going to maybe walk around a little bit. We're going to go burn off some energy just a minute.
Yes.
Then we're going to come back in and the food's going to be there, and that's going to distract him for a little bit. Then you know what? The dessert's to go, because we ain't going to sit around here and talk for 2
That's
hours.
exactly right.
So it's just nice to know. So that Toddler by Design app, you take that little kind of quiz, kind of figure out how your kids are bent. Not that we want to box them in. It's just to kind of give you an idea of, oh man, that makes so much sense. And then we talk to you specifically about how that kid is bent. So phrases to say, what to do when. So we give you some sanity savers and lots and lots of information on that app. It is so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorites.
I'm excited to know about this because I think that with both my 2-year-old and my 5-year-old, I think this could be really helpful. So
it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That is so wonderful.
A lot of fun.
So, are there any, because I'm just now kind of in those, I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old,
Yes.
and I've experienced, some sleep challenges and some routine challenges that we've faced as we have transitioned out of the baby years. But any major tips for moms who might be listening who don't have little ones anymore, but might be facing some of the challenges that come with having a toddler? I guess curious what your number one takeaways would be for moms who are in those toddler years.
They're so much fun.
Yes.
They are so much fun. And again, I go back to, if we kind of know how they're bent, it can make it a whole
Yeah.
lot more fun.
Yeah.
So that we can again, you know, be with that kid the way that they're designed, meet with that kid the way that they're designed.
I
So
love
it
that.
does make it a whole lot more fun. But toddlers are toddlers. So they're going to break things. They're going to try to figure out, where are those boundaries and
Mhm.
which boundary stones are going to move. And so they're going to test those things. So the more consistent we can be, which I will tell you, that's probably one of the hardest things. But if we are trustworthy and consistent,
Yeah.
then they start to know where those boundary stones are and which ones are not going to move.
Yeah.
And so I often say our job as parents of toddlers,
Mhm.
we're to be a consistent, trustworthy teacher. If we are a consistent, trustworthy teacher, we're doing our job. And so I think we have to breathe a little bit. We have to be okay with the mess. The mess is fun. That's learning.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that if we can kind of step back and say, you know what, this is messy. And my kids are going to make a mess and they're going to be loud and they're going to run and they're trying to test. But here's where I'm consistent. I'm going to be that consistent, trustworthy teacher. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do
Right.
when I say that I'm going to do it. And so, and not to try and over explain.
Right.
I think we try to almost reason with a toddler,
Yes.
and we're not going to reason with a toddler.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So I think that if we can kind of step back and say, you know what, this is the way things work, we're going to show them how that works and then follow through with that.
Right.
We become trustworthy. And that's so important.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yes. Consistency when realistically possible.
Which, is, even if that's just, I think the crazy days translates even to those years. I think resetting, before bedtime or first thing in the morning is probably applicable to those years too, and getting back on track and getting the train back on the rails after a crazy day with a toddler is helpful too. So,
And I think, Melissa, the other thing is, the foreverness of every decision that we feel.
mm-hmm.
So it's, if I pick the wrong school or the wrong teacher, or, oh my gosh, I, gave them a non-organic apple yesterday.
Right.
And that's why they're, growing 3 heads, or,
Yeah.
it's that foreverness that every decision that I make is going to ruin them for life or set them up for success.
Right.
One or, the extreme. And so I think that it's okay if we lay down that foreverness of every single decision that we make, that it's okay if we choose the wrong sports activity and our kids end up spinning like a ballerina on the baseball field.
Yeah.
It's okay. And so I would love for us to lay that down and not carry the foreverness of every single decision that we make as parents.
I love that. So I'm going to ask you a personal question. This is the last question before we finish. So you were a working mom with kids ranging from 1 week old to, what'd you say, 12 years old?
Yeah, I think.
And you had twins, and they were just, I can only imagine what that was like. So for you, what was your biggest challenge as a working mom? Because I'm sure you felt some, I would guess you felt some sort of pressure to have it all right. If you're going into homes to tell people, this is how you do it.
I still feel that way. I still think, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at my,
Right.
are my kids going to be perfect? Because I'm, shoot, no, let me just
Right.
lay that out there. No, we
Right.
are not a perfect family. My kids are not perfect. But I think probably really back then and even now,
Mm-hmm.
what I struggle with is trying to keep everything balanced.
Yeah.
And really what I started to realize not too long ago was that I'm really not balanced. I'm off balance. And what really what really came into play was, okay, let's look at this. If I have three priorities, which I do try to prioritize things in my home. If I have three priorities, my top three priorities, if those three things are balanced, that means nothing ever gets 100% of me.
Yeah.
My faith gets
Yeah.
33%, my family gets 33%, and my business gets 33%.
Right.
So if truly what I'm striving for is balance, that's just not going to be beneficial for anybody.
Yeah.
So what I started to do was prioritizing. So I'm very conscious. Okay, what are my top three things? And there may be some, subcategories there, but my top three things, like I said, are my faith, my family, and my business. So if I know that those are my top three priorities, now I can step back and say, okay, you know what? I'm shooting videos tomorrow for the new website that's coming out in
Mm-hmm.
June, and that's going to be number one tomorrow. So you know what? My kids may eat pizza for the third time this week because
Right.
I'm not going to be here and I'm shooting videos in my business just for that season, that time. The business may have to be a priority.
Yes.
And so I find that if I can prioritize, knowing that the order of those things will change from time to time,
Right.
then I can function a whole lot better knowing that things, it's okay to not be balanced. I'm off balance, but I'm going to prioritize.
Yeah. And what an amount of pressure that takes off of you, which is so important.
Hello. Yes.
So speaking of the website, so tell us where people can find out more about what Moms on Call offers and just learn more about how they can use Moms on Call and all the things that you have done for lots and lots of moms.
And we are so privileged to have had the opportunity to partner with thousands and thousands of families. So momsoncall.com is our website. So you'll find all the books and the apps and links to products we love and videos. And so there's lots of information there. And we also have consultants. So I have consultants across the country that can actually partner with you in the day-to-day stuff.
That's
we
great.
talked earlier about limiting the amount of voices that speak into you.
Yes.
Sometimes you need someone who's neutral. It's not your mom. It's not your best friend who has it all together that you have to see every day.
Right.
Somebody that's neutral that you can bounce those things off of. So our consultants can come alongside you and walk you through those day-to-day things. Because you know what? The truth is you can't ask a book a question.
Right.
So this allows you to be able to ask a book a question. When you have that personal consultant that I have, trained, that can say, hey, you know what? I've got to go back to work tomorrow and they're not taking a bottle yet,
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Or just the day-to-day, the big things and the little things. It's sometimes nice. So we do in-home consults, we do phone consults, we do email support. To try and just be a voice of hope and encouragement. And, that's really what we started out doing. And it is still one of my favorite things to do.
I love that. Well, mission accomplished. So
yes,
congratulations.
It's so much fun. Thank you. Thank you. It is a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of fun, this has been a lot of fun. So thank you so much. And I'm sure that this has been a huge help to the moms that listen to the Influential Motherhood podcast. And maybe we can do this again and take it to a next level, as far as thinking through other issues that moms might have. But I hope that moms will find your resources as helpful as I did, because I know that it really got us on the train back on the track, so to speak, in our households.
I love that.
With 2 working parents, it was a tremendous help. So
it is, and you have to have that. So thank you, Melissa, for having me.
Thank you,
I'm
Laura.
so
this
excited.
has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
And I always say, remember to give yourself a little grace in the chaos.
Yes, I love that.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for tuning in for another inspiring episode of the Influential Motherhood podcast. Be sure to follow my own journey in motherhood and work at Melissa Duncan JD on Instagram, and follow the behind the scenes of the podcast at Influential Motherhood on Instagram and Facebook. If you're enjoying the Influential Motherhood podcast, please take a second to leave a rating or review in iTunes. It is how you can help other moms find the show so they can be inspired by these stories. See you next week.